Hi, and welcome to a digital book talk from Massanutten Regional Library. Today's book talk is for our middle grade readers, and our theme today are books that are set in the 1960s. And our first book today is called Fallout by Todd Strasser. It's 1962 on Long Island during the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Only this is an alternate reality, which means the author has changed history and reimagined what could have happened if the nuclear attacks really did happen, if Russia bombed the United States. The chapters in this story are told alternating between the days before the bombing and the days following the bombing. Before the bombing, Scott's father is busy building a bomb shelter in the backyard, and all the neighbors are making fun of him for doing so. 11-year-old sixth grader Scott becomes increasingly aware of racial prejudice, me, us versus them mentality toward Russia, and his own curiosity about girls. And then comes the sound of the siren. The civil defense siren that sends Scott's family running into the bomb shelter. And as much as those neighbors laughed at Scott's dad, when that siren goes off, the neighbors are right there, desperately trying to get into the shelter as well. Some of them do make it inside, and others die on the outside. The extra people in the shelter, along with a lack of supplies, make for cramped and uncomfortable conditions, and their tempers flare while they wait for the radiation levels to fall. They might be safe now, but what awaits them if they ever leave the shelter? This book is really an eye-opening what-if scenario about the human response to disaster. What if the bomb really was dropped? You'll have to read the book to find out. Staying in Long Island, but jumping ahead a few years to 1967-68, we have The Wednesday Wars by Gary D. Schmidt. So it's the 1967-68 school year. And in this story, we have Halling Hood, who's in 7th grade. On Wednesday afternoons, all of the Catholic kids leave early to attend catechism classes, and all of the Jewish kids leave early to attend Hebrew school. But Halling is neither Catholic nor Jewish. He's Presbyterian, and thus he's the only student to remain in the classroom on Wednesday afternoons with Mrs. Baker. Stern Mrs. Baker. First, she gives him custodial duties, but after some hilarious catastrophes that involve chalk dust, rats, and freshly baked cream puffs, she switches to making him read and discuss Shakespeare during their Wednesday afternoons together. He overcomes his initial horror at the prospect of reading Shakespeare by adopting the bard's inventive cursing as his own style to dress down schoolyard bullies. Each month in Halling's 7th grade year is a different chapter in this novel set in suburban Long Island during the late 1960s. It's worth checking out. Our last book today is I Love You, Michael Collins by Lauren Baratz-Logsted. So now we've jumped ahead to 1969. It's nearly the last day of school, and 10-year-old Mamie has been asked by her teacher, as have all the students in Mamie's class, to write a letter to an Apollo 11 astronaut. The boys all choose Buzz Aldrin because he has the best name. And the girls pick Neil Armstrong because he's just dreamy. But Mamie is the one exception. Mamie chooses to write to Michael Collins, the pilot of the Apollo 11 mission, and the least famous astronaut heading toward the moon. After school lets out for the summer, Mamie's mother suddenly walks out on the family, and her father chases after her. 10-year-old Mamie is left under the spotty supervision of her sisters and finds herself increasingly alone. Mamie continues to write letters to Michael Collins long after school is over, as there's a connection there between her experience at home and Collins's role as the astronaut who stays in the orbiting Columbia while the others land on the moon. Mamie understands the importance of Collins staying with the ship. If he didn't, how would they come home again? The astronauts came home, but did Mamie's family? You'll have to read the book to find out. So there you have it. 3 books from the collection at Massanutten Regional Library for middle grade readers that are set in the 1960s. Of course, there are plenty more. This is just a very small sampling. So we have Fallout by Todd Strasser, The Wednesday Wars by Gary D. Schmidt, and I Love You, Michael Collins by Lauren Baratz-Logsted. Regardless of which book you choose to read today, this or one of the many others that we have here, I wish you happy reading.